Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halloween Podcast. I am your host, Lyle Perez, and I know what you're thinking. Hey, I thought we were going to do Haunted America the whole month of October. Well, I kind of took a little bit of a detour. I spent the last few, weeks now talking about nothing but ghost stories, hauntings, and I'm really missing more of the traditional Halloween podcast. I don't know about you guys. Yeah, I love ghost stories as much as anybody else, but when you do that many of them that fast, it takes a lot out of you. Trust me. Haunted America has been a test of my patience and my endurance as a podcaster. And if you're a podcaster yourself, you would know what I'm doing is extremely insane. Especially when you have a full-time job like I do. I have numerous full-time jobs. You guys do know I am a real estate agent here in Tennessee, and I know I don't really talk about it much, but if you ever need real estate, you'll send me a message. I'd be more than happy to help you out. But I am a real estate agent, and I do go into a lot of old and creepy homes. It doesn't really scare me to do that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure one of these days I'm going to walk into a house and it's going to be 100% haunted. It won't even bother me. I've done so many Haunted America shows already that I'm kind of desensitized to all of that stuff now. Yesterday I was sitting in my home studio and I was kind of feeling like I wanted to go back into the Halloween mood. So I decided to go down this rabbit hole of just watching old Halloween commercials. You guys know I really love doing that, is just going on YouTube, watching Halloween commercials. They really put me in the right state of mind. And then out of nowhere, a commercial came on from a board game that I used to play as a kid, and I was hit with the wave of nostalgia. It was like opening a portal to another time. I started remembering all of those creepy, fun-filled nights, huddled around the game board, rolling dices, and getting that little thrill every time a friend jumped at a spooky twist. It brought back some of those wonderful autumn night memories that I remember as a kid. So I thought, why not share a few of those games with all of you guys? Today, I'm counting down my top 3 horror board games from my childhood. These games have a special place in my little Halloween heart, and I think you'll enjoy this trip down memory lane as much as I do. And don't worry, because I haven't forgotten about Haunted America. Those episodes will continue to come out like normal, but you can consider this one a little Halloween treat this October. So I'm going to talk about 3 different board games, and sorry to say the Ouija board is not one of them, even though I know it was very popular in the 90s. This one, I'm actually going to do a whole episode on the Ouija board, so make sure you look out for that sometime in the near future. For now though, let's jump into these nostalgic favorites. Turn off the lights, grab a snack, let's grab them dice, guys, because we are going to take a trip down memory lane with these wonderful, forgotten board games. First on our list is the legendary game Nightmare, also known as Atmosphere in some regions. This horror board game wasn't your typical roll the dice type of game. It incorporated a VHS tape that brought the gameplay to life with the creepy narrative and eerie visuals. You guys remember VHS tapes? I think I wanted to include this one just because it came with the VHS tape. This game was released in 1991 by a couple of cowboys and J.W. Spear and Sons. Nightmare captivated players with its innovative use of video and real-time gameplay. Just listen to this wonderful commercial.
The game Nightmare, the game hosted by a video.
I am the gatekeeper!
To win, you must stop it.
Roll the dice!
The video board game Nightmare, the gatekeeper talks to you,
Whose turn is it next?
and you must answer him.
Answer me!
Yes, my gatekeeper.
Go for it!
Nightmare, a race against time for 3 to 6 very game players.
Let's party!
Nightmare takes place in a dark realm known as the Other Side, a shadowy world governed by 6 supernatural harbingers. Each player assumes the role of one of these sinister beings, such as Govaden the Werewolf, a mysterious creature with a violent streak; Helen the Poltergeist, a restless spirit whose eerie wails bring bad luck; Khufu the Mummy, an ancient entity wrapped in curses and mystery; Baron Samedi the Zombie, a voodoo-inspired character with a sinister sense of humor; and Deshantrine the Witch, a figure inspired by a historical witch who met a tragic end; Elizabeth Bathory the Vampire, based on the infamous historical figure known for her gruesome legend. But the star of the show is the Gatekeeper, played by Wenanti Nosol. The Gatekeeper appears on the VHS tape to control the game, randomly pausing the action to interact with players. His sudden commands and sinister taunts create an atmosphere of tension and suspense, forcing players to respond quickly or face the consequences. Now let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. Nightmare is designed for 3 to 6 players who must collect 6 keys, all while racing against a 60-minute timer. Throughout the game, the Gatekeeper appears on screen to reward or punish players, adding a layer of unpredictability. Players start by writing down their greatest fears, which come into play at the end of the game. The first player to collect all 6 keys and draw a fear card that doesn't match their own wins the game. If no one succeeds before time runs out, the Gatekeeper declares victory. The game stands out for its use of multimedia. The VHS tape dictates the pace and heightens the suspense. With its creepy visuals and grainy 90s aesthetics, the video amplifies the spooky vibes and makes for a thrilling experience. Philip Tanner and Brent Clemens, who created Nightmare, were inspired to push the boundaries of traditional board games by adding an impulsive video component. When it was released, Nightmare was marketed with a full-scale advertising campaign that included TV and movie spots, making it a sensation in Australia and beyond. The VHS format added a unique element that brought players face-to-face with the Gatekeeper, a character who quickly became iconic for his gruff and manic demeanor. The game was so popular that it spawned several expansions, each introducing new harbingers and more twisted challenges. Nightmare 2 featured Baron Samedi, Nightmare 3 had Anne Deshantrine as the host, and Nightmare 4 introduced Elizabeth Bathory, each with their own unique elements and rules. A planned 5th expansion featuring Khufu was scrapped due to declining sales, but the series left a lasting mark on horror gaming culture. Nightmare was more than just a game, it was a cultural phenomenon. The game's use of multimedia set the stage for future video board games, and it still holds a special place in the hearts of us 90s kids who remember the thrill of playing it. The game also inspired dance parties, songs, and even the possibility of a movie, though it never materialized. Even today, the legacy of Nightmare continues as fans look back on this classic game with nostalgia. For fans of horror and retro gaming, Nightmare remains a gem. It's a game that brought friends together and terrified them simultaneously. Definitely something that can't be matched today. So if you're looking to relive those chills and thrills, dust off your VHS and give Nightmare a go. Just remember to answer with, "Yes, my Gatekeeper." Next on our list is a personal favorite, 13 Dead End Drive, a murder-themed board game that brought a sinister twist to game night. Originally released by Milton Bradley in 1993, the game has players fighting over the fortune of a wealthy heiress named Aunt Agatha. This isn't your typical family game. Winning here involves eliminating your opponents with deadly traps to be the last one standing or the one to escape with the inheritance. In 13 Dead End Drive, players control different characters, each with a motive to claim Aunt Agatha's riches. Characters include Parker the chauffeur, Smothers the butler, and even Poopsie, Aunt Agatha's pampered Persian cat. Each character has their own unique backstory and reason for wanting the fortune, adding a dash of dark humor to the game. But beware, the character in the current portrait card is the favorite to inherit the fortune and becomes a prime target for elimination. At the start of the game, players are dealt character cards, which stay hidden from opponents. As they move around the board, players use traps to try to knock out characters. The board itself is a 3D mansion, complete with a chandelier, bookshelf, and other traps that eliminate characters in delightfully dramatic ways. You roll the dice to move characters, sometimes moving pawns that aren't yours to set them up for a fall. Players can bluff, use secret passages, and spring traps by playing trap cards. The game's end can be triggered in one of three ways: escaping the mansion with your character as the favorite, being the last character alive, or surviving until the detective reaches the door. When the detective arrives, it's game over, and if you're still standing or your character's portrait is displayed, you win the game. The booby traps are the stars of 13 Dead End Drive. Each one has its own macabre way of eliminating characters. The chandelier drops and crushes characters below it. The bookshelf topples and sends characters flying. The stairs toss characters back down in a violent tumble. The suit of armor in the gallery swings down, crushing anything in its path. The fireplace acts as a trap door, sending characters into the fire. If a character ends up on a trap space, and a player has the corresponding trap card, it's lights out for that character. But beware, trap cards are drawn randomly, and if a detective card is drawn, it triggers the detective to move closer, pushing the game towards its conclusion.
See you later, Chef.
The game's 13 Dead End Drive, where you can get rich by accident.
It's nighty-night for the hairdresser.
Someone will inherit a fortune, but everyone's dying to bump you off.
A little trip for the fortune teller.
First out of 13 Dead End Drive while their picture is above the mantel wins.
Lights out for the boyfriend.
The fun's alive with 13 Dead End Drive.
Bluffing is key to survival in 13 Dead End Drive. Players might lead opponents to believe they don't control certain characters, moving them onto traps in hopes of fooling others. You can even move your own character to dangerous spots, just to throw others off the scent. The secret passages are scattered around the board, letting players sneak through the mansion and set up traps without drawing attention. The game was popular enough to be released in various different languages, from Italian to Hungarian, each with a localized title. In 2002, a spin-off called 1313 Dead End Drive introduced new characters, slightly different traps, and a money bag system that shifted the focus to collecting wealth instead of merely surviving. I actually did have a copy of 1313 Dead End Drive. I might still have it somewhere. I'm not sure where, but I think I still might have it in probably the board game box that never got unpacked from when we moved to Tennessee. But I remember it. Those of you that are in Southern California, especially in the area that I grew up in, I grew up in Vista, California. So if you're from that area, you know, what's up? My old stomping grounds was there. And I used to go to the swap meet in Oceanside. So Again, if you know the area, you definitely knew that Oceanside Swap Meet, which closed, I don't know how many years ago now. It closed before I left California, but that's where I found the copy of 1313 Dead End Drive. I was so excited, but nobody ever wanted to play with me, so I never got to play with it, and it just kept moving with me everywhere I went. I never really got to play 13 Dead End Drive either. Did you guys? If you did, let me know, send me some emails, and maybe I'll include it in another follow-up episode. But 13 Dead End Drive, it was a classic blend of strategy, humor, and just the right amount of cartoonish horror. Its booby traps, backstabbing, and bluffing make it stand out as probably the best Halloween game that's out there. If you're a fan of murder mysteries with a humorous twist, this game is for you, trust me. So if you got a copy, dust it off, grab some friends, and, well, basically find anyone willing, and let's see who can claim Aunt Agatha's fortune. And finally, let's dig into that one board game that I remember playing as a kid, Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard. This is a classic board game from 1995, and it brought the eerie world of R.L. Stine's Goosebumps into life. We've covered Goosebumps here on the Halloween podcast a few different times, and you all know that this was a staple of 90s horror for not only myself, but for many, many, many other 90s kids. The game captures the eerie charm of the Goosebumps world, inviting players to navigate a haunted graveyard while trying to escape terrifying monsters and spooky surprises. It was developed by Milton Bradley and remains a nostalgic favorite for fans of the books and 90s horror culture alike. Here's a look at the history of this spooky game and its place in the broader Goosebumps phenomenon. The Goosebumps franchise was created by R.L. Stine and became a cultural sensation after the first book was published in 1992. Stine's stories of ordinary kids encountering the supernatural captured young readers' imagination and became bestsellers all over the world. By the mid-90s, Goosebumps had grown into a multimedia empire with television adaptations, merchandise, and of course, this board game. Given the popularity of horror-themed board games, it made perfect sense to bring the scares of Goosebumps to the tabletop. We all know that Milton Bradley was a major player in the board game industry. It partnered with Scholastic, the publisher of Goosebumps, to produce Terror in the Graveyard. It was released in 1995. The game was part of the series of Goosebumps-themed board games that aimed to translate the spooks and scares of the books into interactive experiences. It was designed for 2 to 4 players and offered a co-op gameplay experience that could appeal to both young fans and families looking for fun yet spooky during game nights. Terror in the Graveyard is set in a dark and creepy graveyard, much like the classic horror movie locations that inspired Stine's books. The game itself is designed with winding paths, haunted tombstones, and eerie trees, all contributing to the atmospheric setting. The centerpiece of the board is a rotating, skeletal grave figure that players activate throughout the game, adding an element of unpredictability and surprise at each turn. The game's objective is simple. Players must work together to escape the graveyard while avoiding various monsters. We have the Bog Monster, who appears at random to block players' progress. Players collect cards that help or hinder their escape, drawing on elements familiar to fans of Goosebumps, like mysterious amulets, ancient curses, and ghostly encounters. The game is mostly based on luck. You roll the dice and that determines your movements. Cards drawn dictate encounters. Because the game was based more on luck and not strategy, this made it perfect for young players. The rotating skeleton at the center of the board is one of the game's most memorable features. At certain points, players must turn the skeleton, which can open new paths, block old ones, or activate other spooky surprises. The skeleton adds a tactical, interactive component to the game, engaging players directly with the haunted setting. It also keeps players on their toes, as the graveyard layout can change at a moment, increasing the suspense and unpredictability of the game. Terror in the Graveyard found immediate popularity with Goosebumps fans. We definitely appreciated the game's faithful adaptation to the books. Its release coincided with the peak of Goosebumps mania in the mid-90s, when the series was selling millions of copies and had become a cultural phenomenon. The game was praised for its attention to detail and immersive components, which brought the eerie world of Goosebumps to life in a way that complemented the books and the TV show. Although Terror in the Graveyard didn't achieve the same lasting fame as some of the other 90s board games, it maintained a niche following among Goosebumps fans. It's definitely remembered fondly by those who grew up with the series and remain a collector's item for fans of 90s pop culture. Just go on YouTube right now and look up how many videos are there of people just playing Terror in the Graveyard or reviewing it. And here I am on the Halloween podcast doing an episode on these board games. And I hope you're enjoying it. The game's design and unique elements have kept it relevant for nostalgic nerds like me, and it occasionally resurfaces in discussions of classic 90s board games. Like I just mentioned, just go to YouTube. The game remains a beloved piece of Goosebumps merchandise, evoking a sense of nostalgia for fans who experienced it during their childhood. Goosebumps itself has enjoyed a resurgence, or actually, I don't even really think it left popularity at all. I think kids always love Goosebumps. R.L. Stine is still cranking out books, and we even have new movies, and I think there's even a third new one coming out that I think I saw earlier today. You know, it is probably the most successful kid franchise out there. Prove me wrong. While Terror in the Graveyard isn't as widely known as some of the other Goosebumps games, like the one from Escape from Horrorland, it holds a special place in the hearts of those who remembered it. This is definitely a nice snapshot of 90s board gaming. I think it will definitely be up there with like Crossfire. You guys all remember that one. I don't even have to mention it no more. I'm pretty sure Crossfire was in your mind. You know, if you're lucky enough to still have a copy of Terror in the Graveyard, why don't you go right now, dig it up, dust it off, and play with some friends and family. Maybe it'll still give you a little bit of a scare. And don't forget to invite your old boy Lyle from the Halloween podcast.
Goosebumps. Terror in the Graveyard game. Goosebumps. Get through the graveyard alive or be changed into a monster. Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard game. Collect spells, avoid hidden traps, find the magic ring, defeat the headless ghost.
I win!
Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard game. So much fun, it's scary.
And that brings us to the end of our journey through the haunted halls of Nightmare, 13 Dead End Drive, and Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard. These board games didn't just provide a fun night of scares. They're also windows into the spooky vibes of the 90s, when horror was a little campy, a little creepy, and a whole lot of fun. And that is the exact feeling I try to bring every single time I do one of these nostalgic Halloween episodes. You know, I really do enjoy taking these nostalgic trips down memory lane, and I even enjoy it more when you guys are right here with me. Before we start heading out, I want to do a quick little shout out about a game that I've never heard of, but as I was doing the research, I came across it and I thought, yeah, this actually sounds like a pretty cool board game. It's called the Omega Virus. Have you heard of that one before? Because I didn't until I was doing the research. But this one isn't purely horror, but it's got a lot of suspenseful sci-fi type vibes to it, and I thought it sounded fun. It was released in 1992, which is right up my alley. This game had players racing through a space station trying to stop an evil virus from taking over. It's kind of like, I thought it was more like zombies in a way. It also had an electronic voice that taunted you as the virus spread. It definitely added an intensity that kept everyone on edge. But this one was all about teamwork and strategy and just a little bit of paranoia, which is perfect for Halloween. So while it wasn't on the main list, the Omega virus definitely deserves a mention on this episode. So there you have it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane with me as we took a look at these 3 wonderful board games. And like I mentioned before, if you have any of these games, go ahead, dust them off, and share some Halloween nights or October nights with your family playing these board games. Trust me, it will be a great time. And to quote Mr. Eric Matthews, Halloween is the holiday that really brings families together. I really hope you guys enjoyed this really different, fresh Halloween episode from all of the ones I've been doing. Haunted America is going to continue tomorrow. We're going to finish the rest of the states. I got 20 some odd states to go. I'm not 100% sure exactly where I am right now because, like I said, I've done so many of these and my brain is just like fogged out, to tell you the truth. So it was really good to do a different Halloween show for you guys. If you're enjoying the Halloween podcast and you want to support me for doing all of this work to entertain you guys, please leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Believe me, they really do help. If you have any questions, comments, or want to suggest anything for a future show, send me an email, thehalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our merch store. Go to thehalloweenpodcast.com. I got a lot of cool Halloween podcast merch up there for you guys. So feel free, order some stickers, order some postcards, order as many as you want. Most of the time, I throw in some free ones in there for you guys just because I don't want you to feel like you're not getting your money's worth. But you're really helping the Halloween podcast, and that's what it's all about. And don't forget to go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Halloween Podcast. I post a lot of cool stuff on there. I interact with a lot of you guys. So if you're enjoying the show, you want to come and talk with me, chat with me, hang out with me, I'll be there waiting for you guys with all of this Halloween goodness. So like I mentioned, guys, come back tomorrow. We're continuing Haunted America. I'm not 100% sure which state I'm at, but come back tomorrow. They're all set to load. And yeah, you'll get some more ghost stories. Until then, guys, I'll see you later. Have a good night.